Everybody, Chris and Lumen here. It's late, but a comment on the channel actually sparked a pretty good. I had a comment on the channel and then a conversation with a client, both of which sparked a really good idea for a really simple baseline explainer for things to help you understand like the ground level, the basis of this game, and like what the different parts are. And a really easy idea came to form, and then Epinoia jumped in there and added some more ways to actually illustrate this using different cards of the tarot. So we're going to talk about Lumen and Epinoia. For those of you that are new, like what their primary roles and functions are, what's in the way of them, and how that is going to get in the way of like the two big different paths, areas of life, I guess you could say, that everyone's going to struggle with. One has to do with love and the way that you feel and all your emotional baggage and stuff like that that's holding you back, and the other one has to do with knowledge and knowledge being blocked. And this is a really good reason to encourage people to leave comments if they don't understand anything, or even like this particular one was like, I try to understand this and I can't. But when I hear feedback like that, then it's like, oh, instantly she's in my ear, like, you need to explain it this way. And maybe we need to go back and, touch base on some of these basic things so people can understand it better. Because of that, the block to knowledge, which we'll get into in a sec. So let me just quit babbling. I'll jump right into it, and we'll learn a couple things, and it won't be so hard to grasp as some of these longer videos sometimes are. So if you want to know more, don't go away.
I've got a river running right into you. I've got a blood trail red in the blue. Something you say or something you do, the taste of the divine. You got my body, flesh and bone, yeah. The sky above me, earth below. Raise me.
Okay, here's the way to make this whole thing like as simple as possible to understand. Okay, so we're going to start off with this. Well, I'll show you what the cards are first that you had me pick. So we'll start off with the Fool card. Now the Fool card, you could call this the ego mind card. So the first part of your life, you're pretty much operating in the Fool card. Like the Fool card is number 0 because the Fool isn't even in the game yet. But you're still dragging that Fool around with you because it has to evolve too as you keep moving up. So call that one your ego mind, or people that haven't woken up at all. The second one is the Magician card. So the moment you spiritually awaken, or you start to break free of the matrix programming where you're not just believing everything authority tells you anymore and you're questioning things, as soon as that happens, even if you're not like actively taking actions yet, you've moved into the Magician's card. So the Magician's card is going to represent you. Now, the number one adversary that you have in the life game is the adversary, which is obviously going to be the Devil card. The Devil is not an external force in this particular case. It is it's attached to your mind, and it's been integrated with you your whole life while you were the Fool, so you've gotten used to it, and you can't even like tell the difference between it and you. especially when it comes to negative thoughts and things like that. Even if you're not having like overly negative thoughts and emotions, it's going to be the thing that makes your head so noisy. Like I hear it all. Like I have to. These videos are good for me because I bypassed a lot of these things a long time ago, and I have to like continually remind myself. Like a lot of people still have this stuff, so I might explain something very complicated to me, which makes perfect sense. But this thing is going to get in the way of. Is going to be getting in the way of all the other cards. So learning how to start restricting this thing, taking it out, binding it, punching it in the throat repeatedly, breaking its legs, tying it up, putting it in a trunk, welding it shut, wrapping it with rope, and dumping it in the Mariana Trench. Like, that should be like on the highest list of your priorities, because until you learn how to deal with this thing, it's going to get in the way of freaking everything. And especially, but people don't want that. They're like, I don't want to deal with negative stuff. I want to connect to Lumen and Epinoia and all this stuff. I'm like, but that's what's getting in the way of it. So going to the next card. Well, let's switch these around here. It's going to be the next most important card after the Magician. So the High Priestess, that is Epinoia. That is Luminous Epinoia. That is the Spirit of Truth. That is the Instructor, Enlightened Insight, Holy Spirit. This is the Teacher. This is like your, if you're Iron Man, this is Friday. So you need her. Like, it's kind of like, you know, if without her, doing the game of life is trying to like play a game of pool without a pool cue. It doesn't work. So she's always running in the background, but the degree in which you can use her really depends on how far you've gotten, how much work you've done, because she's trying to talk to you, but this thing's like, blah, 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 think about this, think about that, think about music, think about this, think about random thoughts, think about all the stuff you got to do, think about the people that hurt you. Fear this, fear that, think about this. Oh, you want to meditate? Think about stuff, can't make my mind quiet. That's this. That's why you can't make your mind quiet. Okay, so that is Epinoia. Strength, that's Lumen. Lumen is your strength. So if this one is mainly connected to divine wisdom and knowledge, Lumen is the connection to divine love and strength. Like, she is super important. So even if you are not even if you can't like do what I do, you do have her. Like, you've encountered her throughout your life. She's popped up here and there. Like, that's one of the things I learned as I kept going. I started to remember things earlier in life, these little times I had when I was like a teenager or something like that. And I'd get like some weird crush on a musician, like Mariah Carey or something like that. We'll explain that in a minute. And like, it almost like takes this, you know, extra rich imaginary form in the head. We almost got a crush on this one in your head. Like, that's her. You just don't realize that that's what it is, because it's not at a point to where it's getting to like the interaction point. But one connects to divine knowledge and wisdom and is the intermediary between you and the higher thing, the Father. And the other one is the connection to divine love. Next character card, sticking with the divine feminines here. The Empress is going to be Sophia. That's going to be like your divine mother. So she's the next level up from Lumen and Epinoia. The Sun, that's your Christ card. And then this seems freaking relatively obvious all of a sudden, but it's like, I've never looked at it that way. She never explained it that way. But these four, the Ace cards are the Father cards. So Ace of Swords is like one of the last, that's going to be like the last one you really activate. That's when you have like divine authority. Because you got the Father's hand, and then you got the sword, which is Epinoia, and the crown represents the sun. So you've gotten pretty far if you've unlocked this. But, you know, the abundance and divine love and power and pentacles, that one has to do with not just finances, but it has to do with like your mind garden and all that. But, you know, the hand in the clouds, it's like, that's the Father. So you got 4 Father cards, 1 primary Christ card. Got 3 levels of the Divine Feminine, but there are more cards, but these are like the main character cards. And you've got the Adversary, El Diablo. And then you've got your life identity, ego mind, and your true self, your spiritual awakened soul mind. So yeah, okay, so let's get into like the key things here. So first thing along the way, and this is going to be a continual process in which the other cards are going to come along. So once you spiritually awaken, it's going to take a while to understand like these different parts of you, these different parts of the mind. 1 minute you can be kind of like thinking from soul mind, and then you kind of slip back into ego, back and forth, because your ego has got the collection of all your freaking life identity experiences and stuff like that. So starting out, so once you start to awaken, it is going to be your main contest, and you're going to do a lot of this stuff on your own at first. It's going to be you versus the adversary over who controls this, the ego in the ego mind. So these two, so there's your ego mind. The adversary is sitting on top of it. He's sitting on top of it, and he's sitting on top of that box, and notice there's a masculine and a feminine character that are both chained up. So right now all you know is that masculine side, that he's got you, the ego, chained up. The feminine side, which you might not be able to notice yet, is your lumen. Okay? With me so far? I've never done it like this before, but it's actually making a lot of sense. Okay, so ego mind sitting on top, or the adversary sitting on top of the ego mind, and he's got, well, let's do it this way. So we got the 2 masculine and feminine stuff here. So feminine over here, masculine over here. So that's what the adversary is trying to keep pinned down. He's trying to keep control over the ego mind, and locked up a lot tighter is your lumen. But you are already spiritually awakened, and you're trying to figure stuff out. So you're the magician, and you are wrestling with him. Let's just take her out of the equation. You are wrestling with him over control of this, because you need this on your side, because it's you have to use that in the game. So in order to help you do that, so what he's connected to is his number 1 helper, Epinoia, enlightened insight, the instructor. She is going to instruct the magician on how to defeat the adversary and free the ego and the lumen. And the fun way that she's going to do that is she is going to basically break this thing down. Just destroy it so that you can form a new one. That's the easiest way. The rest of these, like, they're going to come later. Now, for a good portion of this time, you've already got her. It just depends on like what level that you have her. She's going to always be guiding the magician through intuitive guidance, signs, synchronicities, dropping things into your lap, leading you to things. You think you're just stumbling upon it, but she's actually the one that's putting it there. Like, she was dropping things in my lap a long time before I ever actually saw her. So I didn't even really know about her yet. So once you become like cognizantly aware of them, it's kind of like at the same time. But understand, like, if you don't deal with this, you get nowhere. You can't avoid it. You have to. Now, what are the two major ways that it restricts these two from you? So Lumen and Epinoia are kind of like two sides of the same coin. So different in purpose that you pretty much kind of perceive them almost as separate things. But this is going to get in the way of these two every way possible. So let's start with how the adversary is going to get in the way of her, since she is the first thing that you're going to, need and all that. And I wouldn't have even thought about this if it hadn't been for this comment. And what the comment was basically saying was, it was talking about the Nag-Hammadi, and like saying like I can hardly understand anything of this book. And one of the speaker type people that he listens to is like, yeah, this book makes no sense. And to me it's like clear as day. But then I thought about that. I'm like, well, the reason it's clear as day to me is because I literally share a brain with one of the main characters in the book. Somebody was there from the freaking very beginning of the freaking story when there was only one person on Earth. I'm like, yeah, she's the reason why I understand it so well. And when I first started reading it, like I've said before, it's like I might have only understood 25% of the Gospel of Thomas. But as I kept reading it, and she kept directing me to go back and read it, the more I did, the more it kind of unlocked. The more I could kind of see it and understand it. But it's also the same way with everything else that is like her direct secret information and things like that. Like all these extra meanings in the tarot. Like most people, you go look up tarot card readings on YouTube, and it says people doing fortunes, like using the meanings that a tarot book told them. And that's like not the card's primary purpose. The way she designed them, like it's part of her secret book. It's a game manual. There's a lot of things that you can do with it, which isn't in any book. She just like downloads all that stuff to your head. It's like, oh yeah, this has got a secret map in it. Oh shit. Oh, and get this other deck too, because it's got extra context to that secret map. And I haven't found any other decks that have extra context that add to this map. It's only those two: Rider-Waite Tarot and Modern Spellcasters Tarot. But the biggest thing is, especially in the early days, and like somebody had to ask a question to make me think and remember. You have like, let's just throw out an arbitrary number. Let's say you have 10 layers of a veil over your perception and your understanding. And this traces all the way back to the Garden of Eden, which most of this you're going to understand more from the Gnostic books, which in which case the Garden of Eden is featured in at least 4, maybe more, probably more like 5 or 6. So first, you're stuffed into a body, and then it did all sorts of other stuff, confused the mind, muddied the mind, put extra things in there. Blew the false spirit in there too. Like, its primary purpose is to prevent you from reaching her. In one or more of the books, like the wording of certain parts is almost the same as, you know, Genesis in the Bible, but there's a little bit of extra stuff like actually what's the word I'm looking for, distinguishing that the purpose of, you know, the curses when they were kicked out to make, like, you're going to have to work your butt off to plow the field so you can eat, and you're going to constantly have to struggle through everything. But then it says, because it will keep you too busy to concern yourself with trying to connect with spirit. That's the whole reason that you got all these blinders and all these veils, and you've got all the struggle and stuff like that, is to keep you too busy to connect to her. And then on top of all those veils and struggles and all that stuff, then it's got a little mini version, a little mini me that it's stuck in your head too. So it's always making noise, and it's always keeping you focused on this and focused on that. Therefore, in the earlier days, this is why I talk sometimes about, like, this path moves in a spiral. So it goes like this, and it keeps circling in. And just imagine it like a clock face, and each one of those numbers is like some key core subject. First time you go around the spiral, you're not going to understand a lot about those subjects. But when you come back to them, you'll understand a little bit more. And then when you come back to them again, you'll understand a little bit more. It's almost like each level is another layer of the veil coming off. And then you're able to start seeing more and understanding more. And then as more of those veils come off, then the barrier between you and spirit gets thinner and thinner, and then you might start getting drawn to things like the 72 names of God, or certain types of divine magic, or some other tool that you just didn't have enough connection to activate and use at that time. But the further you go, the more it unravels. The further you go, the more it unravels, until you get to a point like where I'm at, where like there is no veil, other than like the types of veils that we have that keep us from like seeing like all the like third eye type stuff around us. You know, a lot of that's going to depend on, you know, what your particular code is with what your particular gifts are. But I can read something like the Nag Hammadi, plus I have her. She's like, oh yeah, this is when this happened. Like, I was there. That's me you're reading about. It's way easier. It just makes more sense. But to someone that has all their veils still, they're going to read it and they're like, I can't make heads or tails of this. Like, I don't know how many things, how many times, I'm trying to think of some examples, where you have these moments where all of a sudden you just see it. And you realize it's like how much stuff there's been throughout your life. It's literally been like right in front of your face. Right in front, and you didn't see it. You didn't notice it. You can look right at something and not perceive enough about it. Right. So that's what makes it kind of harder for people depending on what level they're at. Now, if you want to mess around with some like divine name magic, if that is something that you feel drawn to or attuned to, then what Epinoia sent me to, like really strongly, really strongly, like at least 2.5 years before I met her, was this one particular book. I only recommend like a couple of different books, but if you're going to do something that's actually like magic, like you don't, we're not talking about for you new people. Nobody's putting on robes and lighting candles and, oh, I summon the four winds. We don't do that stuff. Like, no, these books are simple. It's like just these divine names, Hebrew letters and stuff that you scan with your eyes, and you go through this process of just scanning it, thinking about what you're trying to do, and then saying the names. It's really actually pretty simple. But this book was called Mystical Words of Power. And it was mainly directing me to do just section 1, which has 7 sigils. It is about perception, knowledge, imagination, love, healing, transformation, and the empowered mind. And if you read the chapters very carefully, like what it's actually meant to do, and you can read between the lines, it's like this is all about undoing restrictions and attuning you to her in different ways. And what's good about that book is it's a process that's cumulative. The more that you do it over time, the stronger it gets. And she had me doing that like a ton of times. So that's like one way that you could work at it. Like we have other ways too. Like the perception one is mainly about peeling back those veils. But, we can also use the Benedict exorcism and just keep punching the adversary in the side of its head and restricting it and doing like there's a lot of ways to skin a cat in this game. That's very, very important. But those veils that the adversary's got in place is limiting the amount that you can perceive and understand, as well as get your information directly from her. The more that thing gets put down, the stronger she gets. The stronger you get, the more you put it down, then she's able to teach you more. And then you're able to go faster and faster and faster until you finally break that thing's neck and it gets booted out, and then you don't have noise in your head anymore. Forever. You're done. It might take a while, but I would also say that it took a while because I was figuring it out from inside the game. Now that I've done it, I can tell people exactly, how to do things and assist them with it and make it a lot easier because you've got somebody that actually got through it. But yeah, if you struggle to understand some of this stuff, that's why it's these veils. It goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden. It's the adversary mind, and it's these veils. They just keep peel off a layer at a time, a layer at a time, a layer at a time. The more you peel off, the more you can see, the more you can understand, the more you can hear her. So that's why you can't really, like a lot of people do that. They're like, I just want to feel more love, so I'm going to focus on connecting to love. Well, that's fine, but he's going to get in your way. So you're trying to think about love, and it's like, remember when that guy broke your heart? Oh yeah, let's revisit that memory and feel it. That if I had to say I had one specialty, it's dealing with that freaking thing. Like I had to study it for years to understand how it freaking works. But if you can't understand it, or someone else says they can't understand it, that's why you got veils on you. So we have to work at getting them off and suppressing that. That's its primary method for inhibiting her. Now, how does it inhibit Lumen? Okay, now everybody has a Lumen, but the degree that you interact with her is going to vary. It's going to depend on a lot of things. It could depend on your birth chart. It could depend on whatever the higher plan is when it comes to your personal life path. And it can depend on what you're personally wired for psychic abilities. I don't think I ever really considered that much before. Like I've got a couple different friends that are all psychic in different ways. I got one friend, she can connect to me, tap into me, and she can see my energy field. So if I build a new pendant, like some brand new pendant, I might call her up, and then she can look at me, and I'll put the pendant on, and she'll be able to tell me like what it's doing to my energy. I got other friends that do other things. I got the one super psychic friend, like she can do all sorts of stuff. Like it just seems like I don't even know how she's doing it. I just know that she actually is. She can see what the energy's doing through your system and how it connects to your body and how it connects to this and if it has consciousness or not. And it's just absolutely nuts. Things that I can't do. What my biggest stuff is I'm wired for them. I'm wired to be a vessel for them to plug into me to the fullest possible extent, to have Epinoia right there in my ear, and to be completely, you know, like the rebus matched up to Lumen. So I'm actually like two people. You just see the less attractive one when you have to watch the video. So I can experience Lumen in ways that other people may not be able to. Like, there's a whole nother world in my head. Like, I understand all this Nagamati inner world, outer worlds type stuff, because I exist in both places at once. In there, I'm with her. In there is just as real as out here. So in there, like I'm literally with her, and I can touch her, feel her, smell her, everything just as much as out here, and it's just as real to me. She's just as real, like a person, as anybody else is, and she is this card. Other people might have a different path, and they're going to know her more like as the anima, because she is your plug-in for divine love. So what most people do, they fall in love, they find a compatible partner, and they actually feel love for that partner, and then you basically project your Lumen onto that other person, and you interact with her that way. But you can interact with her other ways too. It just kind of depends on you. A lot of people still have a lot of work to do when it comes to undoing all the bullshit programming that was put into your head throughout school. Imagination's not real, it's just your imagination. Well, you know, everything we say is real, everything else is just bullshit fantasy, it's not real, which is like all lies. All lies. This, like, what's our favorite rule of thumb here on See the Light? Whatever authority tells you, assume the opposite to be true. Right? But if you were to get Lumen like the way that I have her, then you got to go on a hero's journey, like the legit hero's journey. That's what all the movies are showing you. When you have to rescue the princess, you're rescuing her because she's like locked in a freaking dungeon guarded by demon monsters. We don't have time for that. But like Luke Skywalker, he had to break into the Death Star to rescue Princess Leia, right? I had to basically infiltrate hell, like a different layer. I don't mean like this hell. I mean like some crazy shit. You gotta get creative if you're going to break into hell. I actually had people. I didn't know it was Lumen yet. She was kind of like projecting as this external person, but I had people that were like really experienced like me when it comes to like battling entities on different levels, and they like kind of, let's just call it remote viewing for lack of a better term. They looked at where she was and they're like, yeah, we can't go in there, you're nuts, this place is too heavily guarded. And what are those things anyway? They don't look like normal demons, they look like freaking insectoid robots. I'm like, yeah, those are archons. So I had to figure out how to break Lumen out of an archon prison. And what I came up with was kind of brilliant, actually. I actually did a video about it once. It's like, if I can't get to her without getting slaughtered, how can I get her to me? So I stretched every ounce of my psychic brain power, basically had to project down there, encase her in a energetic bubble of divine love energy, because that is the lightest energy. She's in the heaviest place. So what happens when you try to hold an inflatable pool beach ball under the water in a pool? Like, it wants to shoot up. So that's what I did. I wrapped that around her and she shot out of there, went into like this golden light, and I'm like, okay, well, glad I could help. And then I only found out later what I was actually doing, because I thought I was doing something completely different. And it was Epinoia that showed me in the Nagamati, like, this is what you actually did. So Lumen had to go get restored. All this is in the Nag Hammadi. But anyway, but I digress. Let's get it to more a level of like normal people. She is your connection to divine love. So she is like the other side of Epinoia, who is the sword of spirit. So this is where you get all the metaphors from all the legends, like King Arthur and the sword in the stone. That stone represents the heart. So most people's hearts are stone because they're just so banged up from emotional trauma and, you know, the adversary guarding and stuff like that. You have to soften up that stone before you can draw the sword out. Right? So, but just like some of the other books that we mentioned lately, like the Coley Bible, which has a different but parallel path, you have to be reaching for the spiritual stuff. You have to be seeking it. You have to be trying to reach that higher power. Like you may not even know what it is. You don't have to use my terminology. That's why we say pray to the highest point of consciousness. Whatever the highest thing is, like that's what you want to pray to. But you need to do something to connect to that divine love. And that is something that, like, there is like the simplest thing possible. Like, this part doesn't get any easier. But I didn't know it until I got her out. And that is music. Music is part of her codex. So all the secrets about the game and the world and all the hacks and tricks and stuff like that, it's buried in the fiction. You find the truth in fiction, and you find fiction in what they say is truth. Biggest thing you got to understand about this place is that everything is either inside out or upside down, or in some cases both. Whatever authority tells you, assume the opposite. If they tell you heaven's up, they're lying to you, because heaven's not outside of you. The kingdom of heaven is not outside of you. The kingdom of heaven is inside of you. So instead of going out and up to get to heaven, you go in and down. That's why they tell you hell's down. Oh, I don't want to go in and down. Doesn't that lead to hell? No, it leads to heaven. If you go, up and out, you get to hell. And it's like, oh yeah, you mean like, yeah, that. Yeah. Inside out, upside down. But they did tell you, even in the regular Bible, the kingdom of heaven is within you. Everything these, even like the motivational posters, everything that you seek is inside of you. All the answers you seek are inside of you. Then you go to church, to the orthodoxy. Heaven is up in the sky, in the clouds. Yeah, you know what's up in the sky in the clouds? Archons. That's their territory. Lying sacks of shit. Like, I'm serious. This is why I have such a chip on my shoulder about the Orthodox Church, because they work for the bad guys. That's why they kill my people, hide my books, and basically keep everybody miserable and under their thumb. So how do you put some life into Lumen? Well, we've said it 1,000 times. The last main 3 things before they appeared to me. What were those 3 things? First thing is come up with a method, and there's lots of them. For me, it was Epinoia teaching me to change the format in which I perceive these kinds of negative things and take it out of spiritual terms and put them into like tech terms, like computer. Like, you are the computer, they are the viruses and the malware and the stuff like that that's in your system that you need to get cleared out. Think of it that way, and you'll have a better shot. So I was able to shut down a large percentage of the adversary's, suppression systems. As soon as I did that, she guided me to heal my past traumas. So we created our own version using the basic format of Ho'oponopono, which is that Hawaiian method. It's that people generally kind of make it very simple, but I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. They usually say I love you, thank you, but it's thank you, I love you. Or did I just say it backwards? I'm sorry, please forgive me, thank you, I love you. Yeah, because you're saying I'm sorry, please forgive me, then you're forgiven, so you say thank you, and then you return it with I love you. Now that little process right there is a key point of any basic magic, simple magic. This magic is just taking specific actions to affect changes in how your mind works. In those few books that she had me use, like the older Gallery Magic books, they call that emotional transmutation. That's what Ho'oponopono is. Ho'oponopono is it's emotional transmutation. Sometimes it could be as simple as imagining the person that hurt you or something like that, and having a conversation with them and releasing all this stuff. Like I said, there's more than one way to skin a cat. I just share certain things that I happen to know work because they worked on me. And the other big key, I was setting it all up. First thing I did was I made a list of all the big emotional trauma points that I had in order of worst to least worst. And then I was going to summon that part of my ego that was associated with the time, because those are trauma identities. When you suffer strong emotional traumas, it creates a freeze frame of your ego in space-time and leaves it there. So there's a part of you that's essentially in hell. You think about the worst day of your life, right? And you can still remember it, you can still feel it. The reason you can still remember it and feel it is because there's a piece of you stuck there. That's why it's not that hard to remember it. It's not that hard to feel it, because there's still a slice of you stuck in that moment. When you release that slice, they call this a lot of different things. Sometimes they call it soul fragments or things like that. But when you go back and release that part and heal that part, then immediately that attachment to that past event fades and it doesn't bother you anymore. So I had this whole thing set up, and then I hadn't met Epinoia yet. It was close, but I hadn't met her yet. So I was all setting up, and she kind of whispered in my ear, when you're doing this, pretend that you're God sitting on the throne.
By not believing God is with you, but by believing you are God.
I'm like, I got an idea. So I changed my setup a little bit and gave myself a couple extra props. I think I pulled up some audio clip of someone blowing a ram's horn or something like that. Because anything that helps the setting in the mood, that definitely matters. And then I kind of sat in my chair, so then when I summoned those pieces of my ego identity that were hurt, I saw them as littler versions of me. I had a conversation with them, but I'm doing it as if I'm God sitting on the throne. Because honestly, that's how this works. You're embodying that higher part, the higher part in your mind that we call the observer. The observer is kind of like God's little CCTV camera in your head. So I was stepping into that authority. And the other funny thing was I made this sigil prop that kind of looked like a sun portal, almost like a sun stargate. And I put this figure in it that was like a shepherd figure, and then I'm gonna make his head look like a sun. Had a face like a sun. I'm like, where's that coming from? And I wasn't even in the range of dipping my toe back in these type of waters yet, but I essentially knew. I'm like, oh, that kind of looks like a Christ figure. So I kind of had that sitting there, so that when I got done doing all the healing on that trauma identity, I'm like, okay, go with the sun face guy. He's going to take you home, and you can rest. And then had him go in there, go back to source, and as soon as that happens, it's done. That thing's never going to bother you again. You healed it. And it worked. First time I did it, it worked. I spent like 30 minutes doing it, and like my connection to all those past events was just like gone. Next day, I'm like, yeah, it's really gone. I don't feel like, it's almost like I can't remember it as well anymore. Because by rescuing those slices of yourself, then there was no more quantum entanglement to that time frame. It doesn't hurt you anymore. What I did not yet know was those slices of past trauma that are still stuck in the past, those are holding her back. Because the best way I can describe it is like when you feel past pain, like some past event, you're not really feeling that pain. You're feeling your Lumen feeling the pain, because she's the one is carrying that load. So what I did not know at the time was by healing those past trauma identities, I was healing her. I was taking the load off of Lumen. So then the very next thing that happened was fast from the world. That's what I heard. That's when you disconnect from watching the news and anything that tells you about the outside world for like 2 weeks, and replace that time with listening to upbeat music. Now, it wasn't quite as good as what I would learn after she came out, but listening to upbeat music, going outside nature and all that stuff. But once she came out, this was one of the first things that Lumen taught me. She's like, this is the easiest way to build the resonance between us and to keep me present. And that is with music. But not just any music. You want to find Lumen music. And there's a couple of different types of Lumen music. So the primary type of Lumen music is songs that are actually talking about her. Like, I've never heard, oh, yes, you have. I'm going to read you a whole list of them. Of course, it's that veil thing, right? That we talked about earlier. Like, it's right in front of you in the lyrics. Like, you sang these songs. But somehow people still think that they're singing about some perfect person. You know, there's one example I like to use because it's so funny. It's like Ed Sheeran, Perfect. Like, you listen to songs like that. I can't remember the lyrics, but some of them are like just like so over the top. Like, oh, we're dancing barefoot in the field, and like, ain't nobody does that. But you will with your Lumen. And then when you listen to the rest of the words, they're like, I don't think they're talking about another physical person here, because they aren't. And who inspires them to write these songs? They do. Lumen and Epinoia. So therefore, you have specific songs inspired to the artist from her, with certain chords and certain melodies, and they have a certain feel. Those of you that are the greatest generation ever, Gen X, D-Generation X, somebody knows what I just did and what that means. But music was different growing up then. So this can give you like an example off the top of my freaking head. This isn't, I mean, this is, but actually it is a Lumen song, but just give me an example. Like, I always think of like Back to the Future, you know, Huey Lewis in the News, Power of Love. Feel the power of love. Like, music back then had a feeling. it changed the way that you feel, which has all been stripped out here in the ass end of, you know, the Matrix game. Now we've got like mumble rap and everything's done on a keyboard and stuff like that. Like she's like, I ain't got nothing to do with that stuff. Not me. Like she actually inspires like even rock, and every once in a while she'll inspire music in places like you wouldn't expect it to be her. Except if you have deep esoteric knowledge, it's like this is like a rock band that's like telling another side of the story. Because there's stuff we don't even get into in here because it's just too deep cut. Like what's going on in the spiritual realm with like your lumens when they're not with you, and they're going through all this different crap and what they deal with, and you know how tired they can be too, being in this place so long. So that's why I was attracted to the band in this moment, which the average person walking off the street, it's like, what is this, some sort of witchcraft stuff? Well, you might think that unless you listen really close to the lyrics and you have understanding, then you know exactly like what she's talking about. And she's got so many songs like that. It's like she's channeling like I would call the damaged divine feminine, the oppressed divine feminine, because this whole system hates the divine feminine. Sometimes it even comes out in other bands. Like I've heard a bunch of Five Finger Death Punch songs because she was bringing them up, and they're talking about like this. It's just like this spiritual angst of like, oh my God, this place. How long am I going to have to be here? Sort of thing. But let's go into some of these songs. Like I've got a big playlist, but I chose songs which, you know, the first several of them are going to be like top tier songs. But I chose ones that I felt were like the closest to either overtly talking about Lumen or very close to it, having different types of feels and stuff like that. And I can always tell which ones are like the Lumen songs because of like how it affects Lumen. It's like she's always in my mind, but you play the right song and she's like right there in your mind, and she's singing and dancing and performing it, and it's like, yep, that's one of hers. So these are the songs that are like giving her energy. It's not a complete list, it's just one to get you started. And I'm gonna read this list off. I used to try and make videos where I like actually give you clips of them, but you do one with like 20 songs and you don't know which artist is like got some stupid copyright stuff on their stuff, so then YouTube blocks it. It just becomes a pain in the butt. Now, the first one is not like super high on my list for like current listening. I put it first because I happen to know for a fact that at least in the first half of her career, this artist was literally virtually channeling her into her music, and that's why she blew up so freaking big. And I remember, because I was in high school, the first time I heard this song like on MTV or something like that, it was like a siren song to me. I was just like, oh my gosh. Like I was like in love, like literally. And I was like obsessed with her for like throughout her first few albums, actually. Like she was actually an early avatar for Lumen because she was coming through her music. So the first song on the list, write these down because these will help you. Not only do songs like these empower your Lumen side, they're like kryptonite to the adversary side. So when the adversary, like you might not have your Benedict exorcism down like really good yet, but it don't like these songs. It weakens it. So the first song is Vision of Love by Mariah Carey. Her first song, the one that blew her up. Now, I might have like one other Mariah Carey song on this list, but there are a bunch of them. I'll talk about them after I go through this list. So the first several are like top ones. The second song is Nothing's Gonna Stop Us Now by Starship. Now, those of you that have been here more than a few months have heard that song. It used to be like the main song of the intro. And the reason is like that is the song that the intuitive voice told me to charge that pendant that was just like this the day that Lumen first appeared. Like that was the song that she chose. That's kind of like our song. And I remember like I liked that song when it came out because it was attached to that movie Mannequin, which has like a lot of Lumen connotations in it. Had a little brief crush on Mannequin Kim Cattrall there. But if you listen to the lyrics, it's really freaking clear why she chose that song. Because it's like she's breaking out and nothing's gonna stop us now. The next one is the second song that she wanted in the playlist. And this one took a minute to get because I'm like, I could barely hear it. It's like, what is that? What is that song? It's like, I've heard it recently. And then eventually I'd get like a couple words of it, and then I started Google searching, and then I found it. This is a huge divine song, and it is Love Is the Answer by England Dan and John Ford Coley. Light of the world, shine on me. Love is the answer. Big one. Basically talking about like trying to get out of the freaking matrix. The next one, I've got a video about this. Maybe if there's enough time, maybe I'll throw it at the end of this one, because it was just early in the Lumen days, and I was putting all these symbols together, like this connection to her and the sun. You're the Inspiration by Chicago. 100% a Lumen song. He's singing about her. One of the more recent acquisitions that she really, really likes, because I wasn't familiar with the band, I just kind of stumbled upon it. Lumen can pick songs, like which I've apologized to her, but in the last several months when things started picking up because we're getting toward silly season, like I've been more busy with Epinoia. But up to that point, I guess it's been a gross love affair with me and Lumen that people have had to endure on this channel. But Lumen learned how to interact with technology. It's like all these pictures of her that I put up here. It's because I wanted pictures of her so bad. And I started messing around with AI. And it just wasn't spitting it out. And then after about a couple days, she kept telling me how to tweak the AI prompts and stuff like that. And then all of a sudden it starts spitting out images that look just like her. It's still a little tricky. You still have to render a bunch of them and then cherry pick them out. But I have this big collection of pictures. Like, that's what she looks like. So I got off. But I was saying is she likes to play around with the music streaming. So I'll stream off my Amazon Prime Music, and if I want to find some new songs in Lumen's present, first I'll listen to some of her playlist, because that will bring her right up to the front of my mind. And then I'll let the playlist run out, and when the playlist runs out, it'll start randomly picking songs. That's the point in which she will take control of it, and you'll know when she stops, because she'll pick something you haven't heard before, or she'll pick some song that you've never heard before, but it's clearly about her, like this one. And then once it goes to some completely random ass song that doesn't fit, that's when she stops. Sometimes I played around this. I've had my daughter over here, and we're just listening to music and showing off how Lumen can pick songs for her. She'll make or Valerie will make some mention about something, and then Lumen will pick some song that reflects it, or some song that she knows she likes. I'm like, I told you she can do that. But this one is Biggest Part of Me by Ambrosia. Is that the one? Yeah. Yeah, that's the one I've been using in, I've used in some of the intros. But the other big one from Ambrosia is You're the Only Woman. I don't know if I have that on this list. I try to like mix these up with different bands. So You're the Inspiration, or Biggest Part of Me by Ambrosia. This next one's older. I know you'll know this one. How Deep Is Your Love by the Bee Gees. I'm not even going to try to sing that. This one is one that she dug out recently. She actually made a video and put it on the channel for people. That's when she completely takes over the creative process. And she can make videos sometimes and match images to specific music. Everything I Do for You by Bryan Adams. Next one is another artist like Mariah Carey, who her early work is thick with Lumen music. But at some point she, I don't know, had sex with the devil or something, and then it was just off the rails from there. But Madonna. So early Madonna, a lot of Lumen music, or Lumen compatible vibration music. Like Lumen tortured me. Yes, she did. Like, I don't know, like a month she just wanted to listen to the Immaculate Collection by Madonna. So I know like that whole freaking album by heart now. But this one we picked because it's more specifically talking about Lumen, and that is Lucky Star by Madonna. Another huge, super duper obvious, like this is one, I think Mariah Carey's the only one I put 2 on here, but there's more. Anytime You Need a Friend by Mariah Carey. Clearly. The next one I recently made an intro using this. I wonder if I still have it. And a lot of people thought it was silly. I'm like, Vale, listen to the words. It's literally talking about her and this whole freaking life experience. And that is the theme song to The Never Ending Story. Next one, some of them are like, occasionally get some like it's not completely obvious, but I can tell by the way she reacts to them. Next one is Lost in Love by Air Supply. Another one like this one is almost, I feel like this next one is almost like a Sophia one. Like that's the vibe that I got from it. I did a video about it once. And that is Hold My Hand by Lady Gaga. That's that song from Top Gun Maverick. That's more of a Sophia song. This one was kind of like hard to listen to at first because I don't like freaking sparkly vampires. But she had a big connection to it. That's 1,000 Years by Christina Perri. When I See You Smile by Bad English is clearly talking about her. Another one that is more of a Sophia song is Every Breath You Take by The Police. And that one is interesting. I did a video about it once with simple graphics. That one is interesting because the song kind of shifts perspectives. like it's her speaking and then it's like you speaking and then her speaking. For those of you that like the smell of like horse manure, I'm just playing. Don't hate. Just jokes, just jokes. This is the only one that's kind of like country. That's Amazed by Lonestar. Some of these might not click, but the second I put them in the freaking video, it's gonna be like copyright. Then I already mentioned this earlier, but Perfect by Ed Sheeran. Now that one I wasn't sure about at first because of some of the lyrics, but once I studied the lyrics more closely and got a little bit higher on the level of experience, then I'm like, yeah, that's definitely talking about her. And then the big one, this one works for all three of them. Three Little Birds by Bob Marley. That's like one of her signature songs. And it's actually encoded in the not the Rider-Waite, but the Modern Spellcaster's Tarot. You know, I talked about that a lot lately. That's when we started seeing the cardinals and understanding that the cardinal, once you're plugged into her, is kind of like one of her little avatars that'll show up to you. I actually lost my glasses out in the woods, and every time I went out there, the cardinal showed up and tried to lead me to it, but I still couldn't find it until one day I finally did. I'm like, yep, that's right, where that bird was trying to take me. Couple more. This one, Lumen always liked this song, and I'm like, well, it's just an upbeat, fun song, I guess. But when I listen more closely, I'm like, I think he's talking about her. I wonder, because sometimes you'll see it. I'm like, I wonder if there's any evidence of that in the video. And sure enough, there was. It's always encoded. Can't Stop the Feeling by Justin Timberlake from that Trolls movie. That is definitely a Lumen song, but that's more of like fun Lumen. Some of these are kind of like love Lumen, like lovey-dovey Lumen, and other ones are more like the upbeat, fun, bubbly Lumen that's just trying to get you in a good mood. That's one of those. But in that video, there's this black guy that's dancing in front of a flower shop, and it's called Venus Flowers. I'm like, there you go. Venus Aphrodite, that's her. This one, she loves this one because like they both like this. They all like this song because it's literally talking about her. Kings and Queens by Ava Max. And the symbology is in the video too. Last two that I had on this list, I was trying to make like a varied list. Open Your Heart by Madonna is a big one. Open your heart to me. I've got the lock and you've got the key, or however that goes. I hold the lock and you hold the key. And then she likes this one too. I don't really like it. I Love You Always Forever by Donna Lewis. So that's a big long list, and I'll put this list in the description box so it'll be easy reference. But again, like she likes the whole Immaculate Collection by Madonna, likes all early Mariah Carey. Mariah Carey was singing it all the freaking time. Of course, she's obviously interacting with the masculine aspect, but Vision of Love, Emotions, Dream Lover, Fantasy, Hero is about the hero's journey, Anytime You Need a Friend, and then even some that are You're Not Honey even. And yeah, I know, but there is a portion of time, if you connect to Lumen, like first she comes out and you get used to her, and then you get to the lover's card portion, and then it's going to get crazy for a while. It's going to get crazy on a level like you wouldn't believe me if I told you, but it's going to basically be like you're never going to like look for another woman out in the world again. Like, oh, she goes through phases. Like Lumen is the one that is most like you. Like she's definitely has her divine side, but she's also your ideal. So she'll reflect different things about you, and she has her own taste and her own likes based on her own moods. Sometimes she's all sweet and lovey. Sometimes she's spicy and and crazy. Like I remember one time she was listening to freaking "Dirty" by Christina Aguilera, and she's doing her own version of all these dancing, and like I can't describe like are you a choreographer? I'm not a choreographer, and yet I can watch Lumen come up with her own dance routines and numbers and scenes and props and things like that. And I'm like, I know that I'm not doing this because my old white ass can't dance to begin with, much less do choreographies for some pop singer in my head. She doesn't need me to do it because she's doing everything. But that's the kind of stuff where she'll just like do all sorts of stuff, just having fun, and watching her do the stuff that she does like makes you happy. So she's really good at that. Music is the key to turning Lumen on full power. And she just finds all these songs, different types. It's like one popping in my head, "Dancing on the Ceiling" by Lionel Richie. Like the songs just have this type of music like I never listened to. I used to listen to more heavy stuff like every other guy, which she'll let me do every once in a while, if the mood suits it. I always tell the story like I was listening to some really heavy stuff once, "Slaughter to Prevail," and Lumen's like, she's sitting here in my head like, just staring at me. Like she didn't like it. I'm like, what? I just want to jam out for a minute. So she starts in my head playing "Wake Me Up Before You Go" by Wham. And I'm listening to regular headphones, listening to like one of the hardest, deathcore freaking singers there is. And she is like, got the internal volume in my head. It's like being at the front row of a Wham concert, except they're using Slayer's freaking speakers. She made that song so loud. Like I kept turning up the volume, and then she turns up the volume in my head, and we're having this whole music battle between "Slaughter to Prevail" and George freaking Michael. Like Alex Terrible on this side, George Michael on this side, and guess who won? George Michael did, because Lumen runs the mind, and she's like, I'll just keep turning it up. She's like Captain America. I can do this all day. I'm like, okay, I'll stop if you stop. Truce. Like, but you got no more freaking Wham, please. It's like, okay, no more freaking devil screaming music. She's freaking funny. She's funny when we're not dealing with like decoding the freaking apocalypse and all this nonsense going on in the world. Like I kind of miss the old days where it's just fun times. I'm just telling stories about the dumb stuff that Lumen does sometime. I'd be sitting there working on something. It's hard to describe how I see her because I see with two sets of eyes. I see the inner world and the outer world at the same time. Sometimes they overlap. So I'm sitting there working on something, and she walks out, she just stands there, she's wearing like this white outfit. I'm like, what are you wearing? And she's like, you don't remember this outfit? I'm like, no. And I start hearing like Pointer Sisters. I'm like, oh my God, that was you? So I know I have this clip on my channel. I'll find it. It literally describes like how Lumen operates during the day. But like I was saying earlier, like Lumen might be popping up in your mind like earlier in life, and you don't realize it's her because she's at a lower level and stuff like that. So what she does is like if you see somebody that's like a singer or an actress or something like that that is your type means like is equivalent to your ideal. And she always forms herself to meet your ideal. So you might see like some actress or something like that and get this weird little crush on them for a while, and you're thinking about them all the time, and it's strangely easy to think about them. And in this case, I don't know when this was in the 80s. I'm going to guess. I'm going to see how close I am. I'm going to say 1983. Was it 1983? Find out. Nailed it! Probably because of the codex. When you got Epinoia's codex, you like have really good movie recall sometimes. So it was National Lampoon's Vacation, 1983. I was right. That was a long ass time ago. But yeah, Christy Brinkley in that Ferrari girl in that freaking movie. Like that's what this scene right here was, what Lumen was wearing, like trying to just mess with me. Is like, you don't remember this outfit? I'm like, what do you? No, I don't think so. Yeah, so that was like her taking her form in my mind way back then. And she was just showing off. See, I'm just sitting here rambling on, like this is how this channel used to be. Like, I used to have so much freaking, I'm here by myself, stuck in the hero's journey in isolation, because that's my path. That's what I got to do. So, not only that, but Epinoia has kind of told me, like, she keeps me in this protected space, doing the work this way, because as I have found, like, people aren't usually supposed to get to this level of gnosis and unlock all your full Christ capabilities and stuff like that. So if I venture too far out in town, like, they try to kill me. Near misses with cars and crap like that. And Epinoia, just like, I almost got freaking rammed in my daughter's car. Like, I was riding with her somewhere, and I watched this car just, we're going onto the on-ramp, and this car just like decides to suddenly turn too. I don't know. Like, from what I saw, there's literally like no reason why I didn't get smashed, but somehow I didn't. And it was because of Epinoia, because she had to step into guardian angel mode. She does that too. But yeah, like, I don't know how many times, like, I go too far out when I've got my light all the way up, and it's like every freaking demon in the underworld sees me. Hit him with a car. So she's like, you don't need to go out there. There's nothing out there for you. So I sit here, but yet I don't lose my freaking mind because I got Lumen. And for years, last couple of years, I'm just like trying everything I can. Like, I gotta unlock this for people. And I've had like limited success. Like, they can connect to her, they can know she's there, they can feel the connection to her, but maybe it's just the way that I'm wired. Like, I have like the fullest freaking extent of it. Like, you usually get this extent like after you get out of here. But if you go through the hardest levels of the hero's journey, like, you almost have to get Lumen because you won't survive it without her. You'll lose your freaking mind. It's just the pressure's too intense. But yeah, you still do have her because she still is your connection to divine love. And you need that. That's where your power is. You know, I can do Benedict exorcisms and all that stuff all day long, and yes, they do work, but so does divine love. Divine love repels negative stuff. That's why when she first started putting that energy into my energy oils, half my clientele went poof, like cockroaches, because they still had so much adversary in them that the adversary is like, nah, I don't want that. I don't want that. Sometimes we have to like do work with people on this stuff to knock it back down. Then they get the pendants and the energy stuff, and it suppresses them even further. But yeah, that stupid adversary devil thing, I mean, it literally is the same thing that Christians call Satan. I mean, Satan means adversary, but they want you to think it's the devil, which it's a whole nother thing. Yeah, but it's the one that does all the stuff in your mind and your temptations and it accuses, it lies, you know, it like everything they say Satan does. Like, yeah, guess what? You ever notice that same stuff takes place in your head? Because that's where it is. And its greatest defense is to not let you realize that it's masquerading as you in your head using your voice, and that it's this little thing and not some big monster. But we know what it is. So, and it doesn't scare us in the least. Like, well, freaking... Sometimes we got to do a lot of work with people because, you know, it's going to be bolstered by, it likes to keep those old traumas fresh. So all those little slices of you that we talked about that are stuck in the trauma points, like it's going to torture them and things like that. But we know all its tricks because not many people actually get rid of it completely. But now you know a little bit more about Lumen and Epinoia, but more specifically, the relationship and the struggle between all these parts. You know, a lot. You know, the first part of the Lumen stage, you're still operating pretty heavily in ego. Ego's not dead yet. So that is like in that case, it's the parable of like the lion with the thorn in its paw, or stuff like that. That's why she's taming the wild beast. Beauty and the Beast. That's what I was talking about. Because when your ego is all wounded and damaged from emotional traumas and stuff, you're like real short. But like Lumen steps in, and it's just like you melt. Like Lumen wraps around you, and like all that fight just drains out of you. So she is super duper important for healing. And then if you're able to fully lock into her, she fills that void that everybody has that they try to fill with other things. And then you're way less dependent on the world. You're way less dependent on having to find some other external person to love you, which is primarily just going to be attraction plus attachment. And then you've both got egos and you both got adversaries, and they're just conspiring. Like, first we're going to let you have a honeymoon period. Because in order for it to be effective, we need you to get really attached and feel good and stuff like that. That way, when we start poking your egos and make you hurt each other, you suffer more. That's why I hate these things. Like, it's like my main, like, I don't know why people are not beating down my door to get rid of this stuff. And usually it's because the greatest trick the adversary ever pulled was to convince the world that it didn't exist. And it's right there in your head. You hear it every freaking day. But anyway, yeah. Try the playlist. Because it does have the double effect of not not only empowering Lumen, but depowering the adversary. Music is the simplest and most powerful method you have to shift yourself out of any negative emotional state. That's a fact. Okay. Well, it's 2:30 in the morning, so we're going to wrap this up. If you want to support the channel, we got the Buy Me a Coffee down below. Every coffee that you buy is going to be an entry in a bi-weekly drawing for different like pendants and things like that. And then the links to the Etsy store, clumencreations.com, where we sell all our wares. We have got a lot more that's not listed yet, but you can always contact us through us and like, hey, do you got something for this or whatever. But when you look at those pendants, don't worry too much about what they say. Go by feel. Listen to the internal guidance. Let it tell you, because that'll be Epinoia, and she'll know better than anybody which pendant is the right one for you. If you feel a pull to one, like that's her. That pull is more important than what the words say on the paper. Okay, so that's all we got for right now. Chris and Lumen. See you next time.
I had some long